Hey there, Film Buds. Welcome back to Film Buds Podcast. I'm your host, Paul.
And I'm Lauren.
And, happy middle of March, everyone.
Oh my god. If I could have guessed that was what you were going to say, I would have won $5. Fantastic.
It's another week. It's another great week here on the Film Buds. How are you doing, dear?
I'm doing well on this middle of March day.
Right, right.
Spring is definitely here in the Carolinas. It is here to stay, it seems like, which is nice, but also it means that summer is just going to be god awful, and I'm not looking forward to that. So I'll enjoy this while we have it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, it is a beautiful day. You're right. It's a pretty good weekend. We've got big watching plans tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a pretty good time. We're glad, of course, to have you back. Last week we decided to cover Creed because the new one was coming out. Ironically, we still haven't seen Creed 3 yet since that point, but don't worry about it.
You'll be the first to know when we do.
We're getting there. But also, since the last time that we recorded, an interesting little thing came out. I was planning on doing something different for this week, episode-wise. But then, a week ago, I was just online, and I saw someone talking about how an entire movie leaked and got posted on the internet. And I said, well, we have to watch it, and that has to be what we review. So for this week's episode, we're doing an interesting thing where we're watching a movie that technically can't be officially released by the studio because it was canceled for tax purposes, but still found its way online. And that movie is Scooby Doo and Krypto 2.
Yeah, we really shot for the moon with this one. So we really lucked out with a whole free Scooby Doo movie.
Yeah,
that sentence could have led to anything.
Yeah,
we were like, this movie got scrapped for tax purposes. It literally that left an open umbrella as to what that meant, and then it was a Scooby Doo movie. It's perfect.
And it's an interesting thing. Movies get canceled all the time. For an example, Guillermo del Toro's Hellboy 3. Rian Johnson's Star Wars trilogy that he was going to do after The Last Jedi. And those are just modern examples that are a few. History is littered with all sorts of examples of projects that got started and dropped off. Some of them you definitely wish could have happened. Some of them get into production and then shut down, either because producers pull out or something happens on the set of the film. That's what happened with the death of that cinematographer in that train accident. Once that happened and it was proven that people were negligent, no one wanted to make the movie anymore, and so the whole thing shut down, rightfully so. So there are all sorts of things that cancel movies.
Mm-hmm. This was a done movie, too, that they just threw away.
That's what's so interesting about this one, is this is a part of following the merger of HBO and Discovery, or Warner and Discovery, going into the HBO Max brand where all of their content is released. They decided to just start axing things, just sort of left, right, and center for the tax write-off. My theory is that, and I don't think it's really all that much of a stretch, is that they were trying to recoup merger cost. And so they started selecting things that either had, they claim that it was all things that they felt were limited financial successes, or didn't meet certain quality standards, what have you, etc., whatever that. And, the big one that took up a lot of air when all of these cancelings happened was Batgirl.
Yes, I do remember this.
Again, another instance of a movie. It was almost at the finish line.
Yeah, it was done. They
Maybe
could have done the
some
exact
reshoots,
same thing
kind of
with
a thing.
that, honestly. I mean, mind you, with this, it was cartoon, so like there aren't any reshoots.
Yeah,
that you
we
need
probably
to do.
still had to also do some post-production on Batgirl, I'm sure. You know, none of the VFX are probably finished on that movie.
No, we're the true fans of DC. You know, they were barking down the door for Zack Snyder to finish that terrible movie. But now, they said, what Batgirl?
Where?
You know, there's just a lot of things that they didn't like about her. One, she's a girl, so she's intimidating. It's terrible. And two, she's not white.
That's fair.
Ugh, gosh.
And so, you know, it ended up actually being that there were quite a few things that got canceled. And some of them were completed animated movies, including some completed Scooby Doo films.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's, you know, in almost a stroke of a pen, a whole bunch of films got commiserated to the history of lost films.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there is a history, you know, I think that some people think that it's odd, the concept of losing film.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, again, the truth is, like, we've lost, oh god, I once read that statistic, I think, on the show, that it's like, you know, like 70% of films, like, made before 1950 or some shit like that, you know, it's...
Well, yeah, because just the quality, you know.
Yeah. It happens all the time. Things don't get reprinted. Things weren't popular. Things got made but couldn't get a distributor. You know, there are so many movies that eventually just sort of float away and are never seen or heard from again. But it's very odd that, you know, a major studio just immediately ejected a whole slew of films and television shows into this lost ether.
Yeah, just on purpose.
Yeah, because the whole thing is they can't be released now officially ever. Once you do it for the tax write-off, you can't make money.
Okay, then they should just put it out there, just to... Because, like, at the end of the day, they weren't expecting to make any money on it. That's why they wrote them off in the first place. So why don't they just leave them out there for free? Like, it's more effective, I think, than just, like, having it in a dumpster, you know, in a metaphorical dumpster, in a delete file on your computer. Just put it out here. You know, who cares? Who's getting hurt by it? Especially, it's like some Scooby Doo movies, Batgirl, you know, somebody will finish that film for free, I swear. Just for the experience alone.
Well, and some things have managed to find some other homes and that sort of thing. If I'm not mistaken, the J.J. Abrams cartoon, Batman Caped Crusader, which was another canceled property, has recently managed to find a new home.
Oh, good.
But some of the other canceled properties include a Looney Tunes musical called Bye Bye Bunny. How I Did That to the Holidays, or Did I Do That to the Holidays, a Steve Urkel holiday special.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're fine without that one.
No! The people need it.
They were going to do another tie-into the Scoob brand, their recent 3D animation re-envisioning of the Scooby Doo cartoon with another holiday special. We were going to get an Amazing World of Gumball movie. So, like, you know, there are all sorts of things that got just sort of axed willy-nilly. But someone decided to go and use the excellent archive machine, the Wayback Machine, archive the internet, to, if you haven't been there, go and check it out. There's all sorts of stuff that you can find, including all sorts of different film and television shows. And someone decided to go and post this entire thing there. Some good Samaritan was like, I know exactly what I'll do.
Ah!
And so we got an entire movie.
Exactly the way God intended. For free off of the internet.
And we were like, well, we have to review it. We have to go and talk about it. But before we do officially talk about this particular Scooby-Doo film, dear, what are your thoughts on Scooby-Doo?
The brand, love it. It's been a touchstone of my life since childhood. I fell into watching the Scooby-Doo franchise with the old 70s cartoon. And I've really watched pretty much every iteration of it, up until a certain point. Obviously, like, we haven't seen Scoob, and there's a few of the live action made for Cartoon Network ones that I'll pass on these versions of it. But no, it's one of those franchises that sits close to my heart, but I know that it will always have some kind of problem after a certain point. Like, it definitely peaked and has been hard to get back to that peak ever since.
I think the best, if I'm being frank, I think the best iteration of Scooby Doo after the original is Pup Named Scooby Doo. With Red Herring.
Oh yeah, Pup Named Scooby Doo is great. Those movies that came out in like the early 2000s.
Yeah, and the 90s and the 2000s movies are really, really good. Witch's Ghost, excellent movie.
Yeah. The
Zombie Island, excellent movie.
That is a perfect Scooby Doo film, start to finish.
Yeah,
great time. You know, I love the live action ones with Freddie Prinze Jr. And Matthew Lillard.
Yeah.
Yes, they're phenomenal. But then we get to all of the just garbage that just is like noise.
Mm-hmm.
And like the list grows every couple of years. They bring it back. You know, at Carowinds years ago, they had a Scooby Doo ride that they replaced.
Yeah, Scooby Doo Boo Blaster.
Yeah, they even had the roller coaster though that they replaced with like a Fairly Odd Parents thing, and I don't think it's even that anymore. Like that's how
I think that whole thing is gone.
You know, but I was like, I remember when it was, and that's how much it had touched my childhood. But yeah, no, like it's something that I love, but I think that it's definitely a little worse for wear. Like I don't trust that new Velma show.
That's fair. I think it got a season 2. But I still haven't even attempted season 1, so.
No, yeah, I've always seen her clips and I'm not convinced.
I think that all that is fair, you know, the early days, you know, the sort of, you know, grand days of Hanna-Barbera, you know, they were throwing out whole bunches of cartoons, you know. But the ones that became iconic. You know,
no,
Scooby Doo, Flintstones, Jetsons, Yogi Bear.
Because there are tons of just Scooby Doo knockoffs that Hanna-Barbera made.
Yeah.
That are literally the same exact formula of 4 teenagers with an animal or random companion.
Johnny Quest.
Yeah,
you know, it's the same
yeah,
structure of like a group of people and a companion.
Oh, there's the one that's like Jabba Jaw. You know, where it's like the talking shark.
Yeah.
You know, it's just nonsense at a certain point, but like you see what sticks and what doesn't.
Yeah, Captain Caveman.
Oh god, yeah, Captain Caveman. Where he was
Ant.
ended up being like our animal companion of sorts.
Yeah, and so, you know, they have this expansive list, but the ones that really worked, really, really worked. And I think that one of the things that also was so special and unique about Scooby-Doo over the other ones was the fact that Scooby lived in this nebulous world that was like a bridge between our world and the cartoon world.
Mm-hmm.
Because you could have Scooby-Doo cross over with Batman and Robin, but then you could also have Scooby-Doo cross over with, you know, the Harlem Globetrotters.
Yeah, and the Three Stooges.
Yeah, and so it was this interesting, you know, kind of like bridge world, you know, I felt to a degree of what world and time and place, you know, is this sort of taking into effect, you know, and it's also because it was really one of the only ones that was just set in like regular Earth with regular people, you know, because even though like Johnny Quest was, you know, like regular Earth was a little bit more like action star, you know, adventure sort of stuff, whereas these were just like kids, you know.
Oh yeah. I think that, like Johnny Quest, like they had like guns and stuff. They had like, you know, weapons. Where it's like it's just these teenagers who keep managing to get themselves into crazy situations.
Yeah, they're investigators who keep on going around as people try to use these elaborate means of criminality.
Yeah, and solve these mysteries of like who's doing the caper and why and how. You know?
And so the crossovers, I think, are one of the best parts, you know, to that point. I do love when they cross over with the Harlem Globetrotters. I think that's fantastic. Witch's Ghost is great because that character, even though it's not Stephen King, is Stephen King. The writer in
Oh my gosh. Yes. This is played by Tim Curry.
Yeah.
So good. His name is like Morning Star or something. Like it's so on the nose. It's fantastic.
And so, the Ravencroft bloodline. He's
Yes!
like the descendant of Sarah Ravencroft.
Yes!
And so, I think that that's a really fun one. But no, the Batman is a great one that they cross over with. And they've now just sort of baked it into the DNA, you know, going back to not keeping track of things. I didn't realize that there are like multiple WWE Scooby Doo crossover.
And look, those have got to be more recent because, like, I don't even think I ever saw advertisements for these.
Yeah, they've got animated John Cena, you know, in these things.
Yeah, like, where actually are you advertising these things? 'Cause I'm not even sure the children are aware at this point.
It's got to just be on the networks, you know, that are for these things.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, like, you know, every child at the toy store is seeing, like, the John Cena and Scooby Doo combo and going, what the hell is this?
Or, you know, maybe they advertise for them on wrestling.
Oh, God, maybe. I don't know, but, I mean, the brand has been easy for quite some time. It's been one of those, like, staples that just, like, comes back. They're like, you know what's easy? Let's bring back Scooby Doo. Mix it up a little bit. What haven't we done yet? X. All right, fantastic.
Do the crossover. You know what? At this point, put them on Dune. It'll be called Scooby Dune.
Oh, I love it. Just Scooby and Shaggy complaining about there not being enough food the entire time.
They've got to outrun a sandworm at one point, you know. We've got the gang doing the shuffle dance.
Yeah. They're quote unquote high on spice.
Yeah, that's right. I'm ready for it.
I mean, you might as well at this point.
Scooby Doo
and E.T.
Yeah,
you know, we're ready. Let's just start mixing it up a little bit.
You know, let's just really use the dartboard effect of what brands we have.
Yeah, exactly.
Scooby Doo and Mortal Kombat. You know.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Actually, I think that
what an abused franchise.
Yeah. But I do really enjoy it, and I think that it does have a lot of value, you know, because I do think that people typically go and have that kind of, you know, oh, I'm such a Velma, I'm such a Shaggy, you know, kind of connectability to it, and I think that that's what people really enjoy about the show to a degree as well.
No, yeah, because I think that, like, the formula of it being, like, these four teenagers that all happen to be friends, but are all have different strengths and weaknesses, and that's why they're such a great team together. And then they've got a fun mascot, you know, who's Scooby Doo, you know, who doesn't love a dog.
Yeah, and, you know, Scooby is a perfect, if you've ever been around, like, a lovable idiot dog, like, Scooby is a perfect sort of lovable goof dog.
Yeah.
And I think that they also really capture that well in, of course, the animation and the styling of Scooby and in that Frank Welker voice, you know, his Scooby voice is iconic.
Oh yeah.
And so I think that definitely is a lot of why it has lasted, you know, is still just ultimately the likability and appeal of the roots of those characters.
Yeah.
So I guess with all that said, we should go ahead and jump on into the technically not released except for on the internet Scooby Doo and Krypto 2.
Fantastic.
So Scooby Doo and Krypto 2, the premise is the gang is hired by Lois and Jimmy Olsen to help investigate an event at the Hall of Justice that has led to the disappearance of the Justice League. And there appears to be a strange, or a series of strange, sort of plasmic phantoms haunting around the Hall of Justice. And so the gang goes to try and solve the mystery of what happened. It is directed by Cecilia Aronovich Hamilton. I guess it technically came out last week.
So, yeah, 2023, here we go.
It stars, of course, Frank Welker as Scooby-Doo and Fred Jones, Gray Delisle as Daphne Blake and Wonder Woman, Matthew Lillard as Shaggy, Kate Misucci as Velma, PJ Byrne as JB, Victoria Grace as Mercy, Charles Hafford as Lex Luthor, Nolan North as the Joker, Superman, and the Computer.
Amazing.
Tara Strong as Helen, Lois, and Harley. Fred Tatasciore as Solomon Grundy and Perry White. James Arnold Taylor as Jimmy Olsen and Rex Roofer. And Nicole Thurman as Mayor Fleming. And I guess with all that said, I'll go ahead and pass this off to you. Dear, what did you think of Scooby Doo and Krypto 2?
Even with the name, my first instinct, and I told you about this, but now I have to tell the show. I totally thought that this was going to be like some weird like cybercrime thing about like cryptocurrency.
He's going to cross over with Mark Zuckerberg in the metaverse.
No, yeah, or something like that. Like I didn't realize it was going to be like a crossover.
Oh,
I thought
God,
it was
they're
going to
do it.
I thought it was going to be like that movie that they did years ago.
The cyber chase.
Yeah, where they were going through the levels of the game that his friend had created. Mm-hmm. So I thought that we were going to do like something like that. And so I walked into this movie and it was like superheroes, and I was like, oh, I have to completely change my entire like frame of mind right now going into this. What did I think about this movie? Oh gosh. I hate to say it. I understand why they canceled this movie. Like it's pretty like we threw Scooby Doo into like a weird place, and I think that they're so focused, especially in like the first like 15 minutes of this movie. They're like, oh good, let's just like throw out all of these DC characters like in your face, as we follow the Scooby gang on their journey through Metropolis. Mm-hmm. Without the Justice League, and so all of these people like Zod and Solomon Grundy and all of these people are going, buck wild on Metropolis, and there's nobody to save anybody, and it just goes on for some time, of getting out of one situation miraculously and going into a different one. And I was just like, I'm not really sure. I guess at the end of the day, I'm not sure if I followed the entire like haunting aspect of it. I was like, they've got other problems here like out there, and I guess like I feel like they brought the wrong people to the wrong problem. Mm-hmm. I was like, no, you need other super people to handle all of these villains. Like, the Justice League might be dead, guys, for all we know. You say that they disappeared. Lois, think logically, and she's like, you know what, I'm gonna hire some teenagers. Oh, and they do the fucking bit with the glasses.
Yes.
Velma, removes her glasses to like clean them or something, and like Lois and
Jimmy are like, where'd Velma go?
And that's literally like for me this entire film.
Oh God, that's one of my favorite bits. It's one of my favorite jokes.
It's absolutely it's so bad. It's so bad, and this was a movie that was made for children. Like there's no clever nuance to it. It is these characters have like two bits that they are supposed to do, each of them. Scooby and Shaggy are scaredy and they're food motivated. Velma is our smart one. The end. We've got Fred and Daphne who are having relationship troubles throughout the entire thing. Because of reasons, because we needed to go there. For all I cared, Fred could have been the gayest man in Cincinnati, and I would have been like, fantastic. Ascots look great on you, sweetie. But no, they had to go in like the obvious direction, which is fine. It's there. But I was like, this movie wasn't like really for me.
No, I think that's fair.
As a person who really enjoys the franchise, this movie wasn't for people who enjoy it. They're like, ooh, keys.
I think that all that is honestly very fair. I think that it does start stronger and have a saggy middle, because you do get the enjoyment and the fun of sort of the initial shock of it. I don't disagree. I think that this is a pretty middle of the road Scooby-Doo movie, like could have been just like straight on TV, on a Saturday, and it would have been fine there.
Yeah, pop this right on Cartoon Network back in the early 2000s. I would have watched it.
Yeah.
And I would have kept moving with my life.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been one of the ones that really, unless you were a kid that was really big into the Justice League, this probably would have been one that you watched and moved on from. And so I think that the big issue with it is ultimately the pairing. Because at the end of the day, let's sort of look at, like, I think what the magic and the charisma, you know, what's the chemistry, what's the math sort of at work of why it works. Their crossovers with characters work because they are either crossing over with another detective character, or they are crossing,
like Batman.
Mm-hmm, or they are crossing over with someone who feels just as goofy in the scenario as they sometimes do. The Harlem Globetrotters. I could even see wrestlers, you know, like John Cena in a spooky mansion with Shaggy being a funny bit.
Oh, yeah, and, like, the fact that, like, he has to carbo load to stay that big, and so they're all eaten.
Yes,
you know?
Yeah, you know, I think that you can play with some of those things, because, again, then it's about taking these people that are, again, just sort of people, but they're goofy, to be in the scenario with them, and have fun with that.
No, yeah, instead we have, like, Lex Luthor as our person.
The big issue here is that, at the end of the day, the Justice League is a big action-adventure, you know, superhero franchise that is now crossing over with this more comedic detective story, you know? And I think that that's where you end up sort of meeting some of the issue here, because there are requirements for it to be a Justice League story of superhero shit.
Yeah.
And then there are requirements of it for being a Scooby Doo story, which is centered around essentially being a comedy mystery.
Yeah. A
weekly whodunit.
Exactly. And where we stumble upon the answers.
Exactly. Whereas Justice League is like fight of the week kind of stuff. And even if there is a detective element, oh, well, Batman handles it. And it's different maths and metrics, you know, that you're ultimately dealing with how you're structuring these two properties and their two payoffs. Lex has to be imposing. It's hard to then have Lex be the guy shouting, and I would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for you meddling kids. You know, because it is, I guess, to a certain degree amusing, but it doesn't necessarily work, you know, as fully as I think that the brand allows.
No, yeah, and they, like, leave Lex as, like, our red herring character, like, the entire time.
And then they make him the real bad guy.
But then they also make him an idiot.
Yeah.
And it just drives me nuts this entire time of you know, I guess, them putting in these things that are supposed to be funny, you know, but I'm not amused. I'm not, you know, the bit with him and Velma, where he's like, you can't possibly break into the Justice League, you know, computer. It's a supercomputer, and I'm the smartest man in the world, and I couldn't even do it. And Velma was like, and I'm done, I'm in. You know, and him looking like an idiot, you know, with his evil dog. You know, I was just... And then we add our actual B character, which is Krypto.
Yeah, who, for the most part, I would say is just there.
Yeah.
Krypto doesn't feel like a strong presence as a character, and that's the other thing about the crossover that doesn't work, is it's Scooby Doo and Krypto 2. And
yeah, it's really as much as a tagline as, like, the title would suggest.
Yeah, like, he's there.
Yeah, he's totally there.
You bet.
He doesn't talk or anything, so he's just a normal dog, but he's not a normal dog, 'cause he's a super dog. Who's kind of an asshole.
Yeah, you know, at times. And so it's I don't think necessarily a match that pays off and ultimately works well. And also, to your point, you know, referencing the glasses bit earlier, even though that gag is a little bit funny, it's a little bit too in of a joke to pay off for, again, what's ultimately supposed to be a realistic detective, you know, realistic investigative reporter. You know, it's fine that it works for Superman or whatever. But to then have it expand outward
Where
for the
literally
gag.
Anybody who wears glasses, they take them off and she's instantly got, like, you know, face,
you know, prosopagnosia.
Yeah. Who are you? This is a completely different person. Like, it's not funny.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like, you know, especially because both of them do it. It's not even just Lois. It's also Jimmy Olsen. Like, when has he been, so close to Superman that it would be ridiculous of why you don't realize that it's Clark? When was that happening, Jimmy?
Well, and, also I think the part of the other issue is that, again, they try to shoehorn in these things, and so they do this whole stupid thing with Jimmy Olsen being some of the thing that's causing some of the friction between Daphne and Fred. And it just, again, feels shoehorned in and dumb.
And, we've been doing this dance with Daphne and Fred for 70 years, It's not been 70 years. It's been 50, though. It has been 50. And, guys, just fucking do it already. Talk about some characters who just need to bang.
Honestly, you should do a whole big cartoon movie where Fred and Daphne get married, and it's the mystery that happens at their wedding.
Oh, ooh. And so we've got people out of costume as well, because we've got them in, their wedding attire in the middle of the ceremony.
And our guest characters are a whole bunch of other famous detectives.
And
so it's a whole big whodunit where they're walking over each other's shoes. Benoit Blanc.
We bring in Benoit.
Yeah,
that's exactly what I was thinking.
He's gotta be here.
This is a better movie already. We've pitched a better movie right here and now. Because honestly,
just do it.
Just do it. What are we? It's not the 70s anymore. We're not trying to please 60s parents who are a little iffy about sex.
What are we halting from?
Guys. And I'm I'm not saying that we should have these cartoon characters bang, but I'm saying that they should
just get married.
Yeah, just be honest about it. Just be open. Because this entire movie felt like they had been in a relationship, and then this one thing got Fred really insecure, and Daphne said, Fred, literally, we were children. I was 9 years old at camp.
And it's got a stick in his craw.
And this is the thing that has him so in a tizzy about their relationship. Is this truly the guy that she wants to be with? Why wouldn't she be with him then? It's been let's say that Daphne is 19 in this. It's been 10 years, Fred. And for me, it's just such an unnecessary thing to put in there.
Mm-hmm.
We just needed every couple to have something going on. And since we didn't have anybody to tackle into the Fred and Daphne couple, pairing that they always do, so then we had to have them in conflict the entire time.
Yeah.
Because Shaggy and Scooby get Krypto, because Krypto is apparently just as big a eater as they are, and that's great. That's great. We've got Velma,
who's solving the mystery
with Lex, who's trying to impede her. I assume. I don't know. It's not very clear. And then the ending is so just oh yeah, we shot him with some thingamadoo ray, and it's not actually anything. Whereas I liked in the past where it was some person in this elaborate costume that for the longest was absolutely working. These people who had figured out this light trick that they could teleport themselves through walls, apparently, all of this cool stuff to make their their scary thing actually scary. And it's just oh no, they're in the Phantom Zone. The end. Fantastic. I don't know. This movie was made me sad. Made me sad for the franchise, but I know where we are.
Well, and I definitely think that Scooby Doo is just something that I think needs to be sat down and looked at more seriously. And I think that's part of the problem, is that no one has really just sat down. Let's really, I guess, address it.
Yeah, and everybody's had their hands on this franchise. It's dirty, guys. Come on. Maybe if you want to bring something, something like this that is nostalgic based, maybe we could go to one of those other shows like Jabba Jaw, or the one where it was the Dune Buggy one, and let's maybe bring back one of those ones as a new thing, and then we can do something stupid with it. Nobody cares because these are new characters to us.
No, I don't disagree. And also, I think, again, you just have to be mindful about what it is that you're crossing over Scooby with. And even if you want to maybe have, a Justice League character or Justice League characters, you need to bring them into the world of Scooby not Scooby into their world.
You make a very interesting point. I think that that's totally fair, and I think that that's why, honestly, a lot of the other things of the crossovers have worked. It's because it's not like Scooby-Doo going to the Harlem Globetrotters. It's like the Harlem Globetrotters being put into a Scooby-Doo environment.
Scenario.
Yeah, where they're like solving a spooky mystery in an abandoned castle together as the Harlem Globetrotters.
Oh, it's Superman in a lead-lined mine shaft, and that's why he can't see out and use his X-ray vision on anything, and we're having a sleuth at old-fashioned style.
But now we've got the handy-dandy Superman here, with all of his...
Who can lift things, and push stuff out of the way, and
And maybe the conflict here is the fact that he's so much of a Fred that Fred doesn't know what to do in the situation, because he's like, fuck,
he's the one leading the way.
Yeah. Well, what am I supposed to do now? And like maybe he has like an identity crisis, and like that's the thing. And like Daphne's like, Fred, get your head out your ass. It's gonna be fine.
Look at him. He's a big lummox. He doesn't know what he's looking for. Batman's the detective.
Yeah. He just picks things up and puts them down.
Yeah, you see Superman picking something up. I think it's a clue, and it's absolutely nothing.
Oh yeah, and he's putting on his best Superman voice. Even though he's supposed to be a prized reporter. Don't even worry about that.
But we can have some fun with this.
Yeah, exactly, because who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares?
But you need to bring characters into the world of Scooby Doo, not
I think that if we wanted to do it, we should have done like the Legion of Doom's headquarters is like our main place instead of the Hall of Justice, because that feels more of like a Scooby-Doo setting.
Well, and again, you also need to look at your characters, I think, as well, are the really important thing. Because like, okay, let's say that you want them to cross over with some DC characters, right? Okay, well then why not do Justice League Dark, Swamp Thing, John Constantine, witchcraft, and magic, and all of these sorts of things, or Solomon Grundy, this actual undead character.
No, yeah, I loved the whole bit where Scooby thought it was the Creeper. Like, I thought that was funny. I was like, oh, because this is something that is, like, affecting them. I was like, oh, yes, I'm coming here to watch Scooby-Doo, so I am already filled with my Scooby-Doo knowledge. That's why I hated the play-by-play of the villains. Because also it didn't really matter. They weren't actually a part of the narrative at all, other than they were destroying the city. And so, like, them getting a whole introduction sequence, I was like, what are we doing?
They didn't go anywhere with them. Yeah,
I got more of an introduction for them than I got for Lois Lane.
Yeah. And so I think that those are definitely some of the shortcomings and some of the things to keep in mind moving forward with what makes a good Scooby-Doo crossover. And I don't think that this brand is anywhere near tapped. You can't treat it as disposably as it sometimes can be treated.
And that's how I feel about, I guess, whatever's happening with the Velma show. I feel like that's just somebody just said, I don't really care what you do with Scooby-Doo. And so, gosh, I forgot her name. Mindy Kaling. My brain was like Mindy Riperton, it was just putting in M names.
Minnie.
No, just, yeah. Mindy raised her hand and said, I'll take it for a little bit. I'll take it for a spin. And they said, sold to the highest bidder. And that's how we got this. Which is just, what's the point? Doesn't look interesting.
No, and I don't disagree with where you're coming from with it. Because I appreciate the idea of trying to do, some of what James Gunn, also wanted to do, which is do this kind of more adult riff on the characters and that sort of thing. But I also think at the end of the day, you need to have them be more identifiably the characters in terms of just even their general characteristics and their motivations and some of their plotting, because we've looked at some clips and read some plot descriptions, and the whole idea of Shaggy being this kind of like more romance-obsessed person, we're getting away from some of the identity that ties them to what the show originally was, for you to then go and try and do this riff on it.
No, yeah, I would have loved the idea of like, instead of leaning into like the romance focus, to lean into like, he's a stoner.
Yeah, just legitimately.
you know, and so like all of the food motivation is just because he's always hungry, you know, and that Scooby is a dog, and so dogs are always hungry. That's just an easy one right there. You know, the dog doesn't.
No.
But it just, and then we can still modernize that idea
and have fun with it and change
you know,
things
kind of
around.
like a Hannibal Buress
you know,
character or something, you know. That's my Shaggy. It's just this dude who's like, I don't even know what we're doing right now.
No, I get that.
You know. But it's just because she wanted to put the character skin on people that she already knows who didn't necessarily fit into the character skin, but it's fine. You know, because she had the perfect. It's like every college group of friends who have ever dressed up as the Scooby Doo gang. You're like, perfect. I've just put the character skin on. Doesn't mean you have to act like this person. You know, you just look like them now. Congratulations.
Glenn Howerton, I will say, was the right pick for Joke Fred.
In the show?
Yeah, in Velma, he's the one that cast as Idiot Fred. Yeah, Glenn Howerton.
Oh yeah, I think that's.
But yeah, that's where I stand on Scooby Doo and Krypto 2. If you had to give it a rating, dear, what would you give it?
I'm gonna give this movie. I don't know. I'm gonna give this movie a 2. I'm gonna give this movie a. Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 2.
Yeah, I think 2 is fair. You know, maybe 2.5 if you're feeling generous, but I think 2 is probably.
You know, of the movies that I got to watch for free, you know, great. You know, well, the last movie that I actually got to watch for free was, I think, maybe The Interview.
Fair.
So, like, the list is pretty mid.
But at least it's there.
Exactly. It's this was more about the experience that I enjoyed. Like, the whole of the fact that it got completely erased and, like, put on the internet. You know, they put it out here for free. Like, I loved this. You know, and the fact that you did this deep dive into the internet to find it. Great story. Perfect. The movie?
Yeah.
You know? Didn't meet expectations.
No, and you know, I still wish that it had been put out though. As well, just because people did work hard on this.
No, yeah, we created an entire movie here.
This was going to be some of someone's resume piece, because like it's also animated great.
Yeah,
like, let me also just put that out there. All of the issue with the film lands more on the
story.
Poor melding of the story and its elements. Visually, totally great. Animated fantastically. They do a good job of marrying the Scooby Doo and the Justice League cartoon styles together, so it looks fantastic overall. Very, very well animated film. And so, like, I still wish that it had been out, so that way the people who worked hard on this could have had their work be seen, could have been able to actively say that they had worked on this film, be able to point to it, pull clips from it, what have you. So
without having to do, a deep dive on the internet.
And so it is a shame, you know, the way that their work got seen, but, like, at least their work did get seen.
Yes.
Alright, I guess with all that said, that's pretty much everything that we have for y'all this week. Be sure to come back next week. We're actually going to a documentary and a Q&A screening tomorrow in Raleigh, and so we'll be talking about that next week on the show. So please come back and be on the lookout for that. Be sure to check out our review of Creed last week. Thanks as always, you guys, for listening, and we'll catch you guys next week. Bye!